Okay. Well, we would be foolish to have the bishop here and not talk a little about religion. I mentioned you were here after the 9/11, pretty soon after, and we plugged your book, A New Christianity for a New World. And I remember saying, you know, you couldn't have a book called A New Islam for a New World. They'd kill you on both counts. Because they're very sure of who God is. But, of course, so are the Christians sometimes. They just don't kill to that degree. But,
I have no idea, incidentally.
Yeah, no one does. That's my point. It's like, what is wrong with just saying, I don't know? I'm a human being. How could I possibly know the nature of God? I'll know when I'm dead, or I won't, or I'll just be taking a dirt nap.
So, are you saying
What?
How come an agnostic can an agnostic get into heaven? That's what you're saying.
Heaven. Again, is there how do we know any of it? Why can't you just say, I don't know? I know it's scary to not know what happens after you die.
Because Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. So
John
therefore...
says that Jesus said that, but he wrote that in about 95 A.D.
Yeah.
Bill, security, religion does a lot of things for people. Giving them security is one of them. And one of the ways you claim security is to claim you have the truth. As soon as you claim you have the truth, you then try to impose it on other people. The dark side of religion comes out of that imposition. When my Pope is infallible, or my Bible is inerrant, or I'm a member of the true church, or I have the only way to God, then you feel justified in doing terrible things. Look at what the Christians have done to the Jews. Look at what the people we burned at the stake. Look at the religious wars we fought. Those are not bright chapters in our history. No. And I'd like to be
look at the fact
rid
that
of
Christians
them.
were at the forefront of fighting against slavery. There's a lot of, Jesus
Well, there's a good
came
side too. There's no doubt about that.
But you're always writing about the bad things about the church
No, I
and
think he's simply
ignoring.
saying that proselytizing is incredibly dangerous, and also it's incredibly hurtful. I mean, I don't go around proselytizing atheism or try to talk people out of believing in God if they want to believe in God.
But it's more than that, incredibly arrogant. Isn't it arrogant as a human
Don't you
being to
think
think you
atheists are
have
arrogant?
the answer?
And agnostics are arrogant.
Who is?
Agnostics like you are arrogant.
But that's just coincidence.
Yeah, that's beside the point.
No, I don't think I am as arrogant. I really don't. I always say I'm a 99%er. I am only 99% sure of everything. 99% sure OJ killed his wife. That's the most I ever get. That's as high as... I'm not sure we're here now. This could be a dream in a parallel universe.
Right, it's faith. So you believe Aristotle existed because you have faith that
And
the history
why
book
also
was
not
right.
live in the present tense and live a good life for the sake of living a good life?
I think you do.
Well, because because the question is, Bill is saying, what does it matter if I just don't know? And I think it's kind of, I always hate it when I hear this idea that proselytizing or that talking about Jesus comes across as being arrogant. And I'm sure there's some people who do present it that way. But it's the idea that if you believe in that there's an ultimate reality and that there is a really fundamental difference between taking a dirt nap and heaven or ultimate consequences and eternally being with God, then
but it's
why
your
wouldn't
version.
you talk
What's
about
arrogant
it?
is your version. What's arrogant is you say,
No, don't
I
make it
know, and
personal,
the other
Bill.
5 billion people who don't see it my way are at best benighted the poor dears. That just...
No, don't make it personal, because I'm trying to say that there are arrogant ways of doing it. There's other ways of saying, hey, I found something that makes a real difference in my life. Jesus makes a difference in
the
your life.
discussion we're having
Okay.
about this particular
And Jesus
arrogance? I mean, I think
welcomed
that's what we're saying.
doubters. Doubting Thomas, John the Baptist said to him, are you the one? And then Jesus said, of woman born, you are the greatest. And he said, are you the one, Jesus? I mean, there was doubting. Jesus lets you doubt him. There's a difference between doubt
Why don't you
and
follow
disbelief.
that?
Let's recognize that the Bible that we're all quoting here was written sometime between 1100 before the Common Era and 135 after the Common Era.
So you don't think it's the Word of God?
I don't think God dictated it. Now, I'd hate to blame God for women being treated as property, homosexuals being put to
See,
death,
there you go
wars
again.
being justified.
There you go again.
I just don't want to buy that. That's not the kind of God I want to work with.
God didn't do that. What do you preach in your church if you don't believe the Bible?
Well, I preach about the God of love, the God of life, the God of being, who calls you to live, to love, and to be. And that's the God I see in Jesus. That's why I'm a Christian.
So you wrote your own Bible.
That's a question that would take us a while to unload. But just try to imagine a doctor. Try to imagine a doctor who had practiced medicine out of a medical textbook written between 1100 and 135. The world has changed dramatically since then.
The Bible said the life of the flesh is in the blood, and that was before people knew.
But even if you believe the Bible, the people who wrote the Bible, it was not meant to be history. It was not meant to be literal. They were parables. People read it back then and read into it something that was not literal. We're the dummies who read it literally. It's like if you taught your kid the tortoise and the hare and he went, okay, rabbits are stupid. I get it. They lose. That's not the lesson of that.
But some of the Bible is absolutely evil. I mean, some of the Bible is absolutely evil. God hates the Egyptians, so he sends plague after plague after plague on the Egyptians. God closes the Red Sea so all those Egyptians could die. If God is not the God of the Egyptians, I don't want to worship this God. Right. We got to be more inclusive than that.
But that's what the New Testament
See, I always say that
I
always say that at Passover, and everyone always gets very upset at me because I want to open that discussion about the angry God, and then I don't get the gefilte fish at the end of the meal. But I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, the God of the Bible is really just a human God. He's just a little more powerful, but he's very human. He gets pissed. He's a single parent.